Responsibilities. Legal obligations. This is where coaches must make sure that they are safeguarded, especially when working with children. This includes having a disclosure of barring services check, DBS, which checks previous convictions such as sexual offences and violent criminal records. It is very important that a coach has this, because otherwise they are not allowed to work with children, as it would be unaware what the history is of that coach. It may be potentially dangerous to the children to have that coach in charge of them. As well as this, all coaches must be aware and adhere to the Children Act 2004, and they must be aware of the signs and symptoms of child abuse. This is so that if a child is participating in a coach's session and they are displaying these symptoms and signs, and then the coach may have an idea that the child is being abused at home, and therefore they can do something about it by making the authorities aware. Helping to make the child safe. The 4 signs of child abuse are physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, and neglect. Signs of physical abuse may be bruising, cuts and burns, or anything that is marked on the child's body, which is like it has been caused by physical abuse. Signs of sexual abuse would be over-sexualized behavior from the child, as it isn't natural for a child to be over-sexualized, showing over-sexualized behavior, as they shouldn't know too much about it at that age, therefore, and may mean that they are too exposed to it. Signs of emotional abuse may be that they are withdrawn and reserved from social contact, as they have had a persistent lack of love and attention. Lastly, the signs of neglect are a child's clothes or appearance in general, as neglect is the failure to meet the child's basic needs like food and clothing. It is important that the coaches are educated in this, as a coach may be one of the only other people who has contact with the child when they go to a session, and therefore they may be one of the only people who can report the abuse if they spot it. When dealing with abuse, it is important to react calmly, assure the child, take them seriously, make a record of it, keep questions to a minimum, report the findings, and most importantly, do not promise confidentiality, because if it is something that cannot remain confidential, as something as big as child abuse has to be reported, and therefore by promising confidentiality, you can't tell, which is dangerous to the child, and if you do, you are leaving yourself open to legal matters. Professional conduct. As a coach, conduct and behaviour that you display determines the current and future experiences of the athletes. Therefore, it is important to be a good role model and act professionally as a coach, especially when coaching younger ones, as they will learn from it. By doing this, you must respect all officials, respect all abilities, be an effective communicator, reward effort, promote fair play and honesty, in order to teach the children valuable life skills and have the correct qualifications, knowledge and experience. Furthermore, to make sure that you are setting the best example and not breaching any rules or codes of conduct, it is your responsibility as the coach to research the codes of conduct and make sure that you know them and don't break them, because when coaching children, it is all about the experiences and the life lessons instead of the winning and the competitive side of it. This is important because when coaches begin to get too competitive, and then they may get annoyed about decisions in a game and end up breaking some of the codes of conduct, which will only teach children that it is okay to do so when really it isn't. This is bad because it is teaching them the opposite to what they should know and what they should learn. Equal opportunities. As a coach, there should be no prejudice, and there should always be equal opportunities allowed to all. This means that it is a coach's responsibility to remain fair and to have no prejudice against anyone, despite their age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, sexuality, socio-economic status, and ability. This is very important because when coaching young children, it is important to send out the right message to them about equal opportunities and teaching them positive ways of thinking towards others who may be different to ourselves. Furthermore, having a prejudice towards someone and discriminating against them may mean that they don't get the same experience as some of the other children in the sessions. This could have an effect on their life, as if someone is discriminated and treated badly in the session, then they may be emotionally scarred from participating in anything like that again, due to the fear of being treated that way again. This may affect their future activity levels, and also their experience in sport in general, when they are older, when really the idea is to encourage children to take up sport from a young age so that they continue it to when they are older. Also, using discrimination against a child could prevent them from unlocking their full potential and therefore potentially harming their chances of progressing in the sport. For example, a child may be very good at football from a young age, but they have a different ethnic background, and therefore being prejudiced towards them could affect their outlook on the sport, which could potentially result in a waste of talent. Health and safety. All coaches have a duty of care where they must adhere to a standard of reasonable care while performing acts that could potentially harm others. All sports carry a risk of injury, and therefore it is important that a coach carries out a risk assessment on every training session, all game, to make sure that there is preventative measures put in place in order to try and avoid any injury that may occur from the sport. There are two types of risk factors, which are extrinsic and intrinsic. Intrinsic is a physical aspect of the body that may cause injury, such as muscle imbalance, whereas extrinsic is something outside of the body which may cause injury, such as weather conditions. Usually intrinsic risk factors are harder to combat because it is a problem with the body itself that causes injury, whereas most extrinsic factors can be avoided. For example, if the weather conditions are a risk factor, then you can move the session indoors or cancel it if it is too extreme. Techniques. The techniques of a coach are what the coach uses in a session in order to train the athletes and then put it to the test. For example, when coaching a practical for a basketball session, you may do 4 20-minute spells of fitness testing, observational analysis, goal setting, and then a game. This is so that you can analyse the player's body composition, their strengths and weaknesses, and then see what they are like in a game. This is important at an elite level because it may help to see what their best team would be, and also where each player performs best. As well as this, at lower levels it may be helped to determine if a player can do better in another position, which may benefit the team more in a game, which increases performance because then the people who are the best in each position are playing there, and therefore the best team is playing, meaning there is a bigger chance of getting better results.